Hey folks, this is Ben Yesel. I do apologize if some of these videos are out of order. If the next few days I find that they're a little bit out of order, I'm going to not delete any of these so that I can put them in order. Um, just these longer videos, sometimes I'll push the wrong button to send the wrong thing to YouTube. So I'll fix it if it needs fixing. But this is part 4 of how I see other people. So I mentioned that I had a horn professor who was a little bit more on the tried to be as understanding and as accommodating as he possibly could be to people of many different backgrounds. And he himself was from a religious background, but he really, because again, you want to be careful when you're talking about these things, especially in a public university or whatever. But he really made it a very strong point of his to try to, not have anybody feel left out because they were a certain religion or a certain way of whatever, you know. Isn't it funny how we have so many people, though, these days that are trying to do that? But, or it's just, trying to not stick with their own kind, always, or trying to understand others, better. And isn't it interesting how, well, do we make progress? I guess. But we still have our groups. Are these groups ever going away? I've talked about earlier, whatever they are. However close to our hearts these groups are, and there are many, many different kinds. Some people think that doing away with all of these groups is the solution. It's the best. It's the best way of doing things. Some kind of utopia, along with things like equality and everybody's equal, and we're gonna have a time when, well, you get the idea, right? This is kind of a little bit more of a some liberals might think this way. I just look. It's not how I see perfection, but I understand. I understand that whole way of thinking, but it's a little weird. Yeah. So, but I can't deny that some people take it very seriously. You know, I know it's a part of some people's whole way of seeing the world and the whole way of seeing life. When we talking about trying to understand others better, it's all about knowing ourselves and how we are and think, and then how others are and think truly. Truly. And to do that, we can always develop friendships and talk to them and all this stuff. But it's so hard to get at the core of some people, isn't it? Some people talk about how, when you have sex, it's like one of the ways that you can most connect with someone. And you talk about Star Trek, the mind melding. Well, okay. When do you know that you really understand someone at a really deep, profound level? It's when someone has the kind of heart-to-heart conversation with you. I would imagine, I won't get into this, but anyway, I won't go there. But it's when you have that kind of communication where there's no fear, there's no judgment. You just are talking, and you're just talking with someone with no walls, no limitations, no nothing, and just talking, as long as you can, as long as you can. That, and you're talking, speaking from the heart, nothing, and you just you going and going, and talking about everything in your life. I don't know how much closer you can be with someone after that kind of conversation. Maybe to do that over and over again for a long, long time, and to have that person part of your life in every way, shape, and form. our own family, parents, for some of us are that, our spouse is that kind of person, whoever it is, it's that's how, but, it's not easy. It involves sometimes a leap of faith, especially the less you know someone. But, I don't know. Like, we want to be understood. That's one of the things we want the most in life. But on that level. But it's so rare that really happens. And this is why people, I think, feel, even though they have many friends and many good things in their life that way, many people they know, this is why we feel lonely still. This is why I feel lonely still, no matter what. We just know there are precious few people that understand us as well as we would like to be understood. That's what it comes down to, folks. That's what it comes down to. It's, there are just not too many people that really get us, are there? Really. Truly. Deeply inside. You take someone that's in jail, that's done some very heinously wrong things. By some miracle, that person says something, you see a glimmer of humanity in them. What is that person gonna, if you get to that point, I imagine the person they're talking to, maybe they just say, I'm about to die, might as well. I don't know. Maybe, what's that person gonna say? Why would they be, because maybe some part of them said to themselves, I would like to be understood better. I'm going to say something from the heart. And it might be really hard for me to do this because I've rarely done this, if ever, in my life. But I'm finally going to do it. So they say something. But unfortunately, it's too late. But at least they said something. Right? No, I know. Most of us are not serial killers. Most of us are, but really, we're all precious in the eyes of God. Is Satan precious in the eyes of God? You have to ask him. Satan's pretty darn bad, isn't he? Well, we get into religion with this subject, don't we? But on some level. But you know what? We want to be understood. We want to be understood on the level where we feel like our life means something. That when we die, we're leaving something behind that's from us. It's from us. Our legacy, our being, our essence, who we are. We want, this is something that I think we all care about very deeply on some level. And, I just, if there's anything that irks me really very much so, it's when someone comes along who doesn't seem to get this about other people, about anybody, about themselves. They forget it, or they forget that other people are wanting this kind of relationship with someone. Usually we're talking about something romantic here, but not always. It's just something, it's like an anchor relationship. It's something that anchors us. Something that, in the storms of life, we feel anchored. We often feel more anchored to people than we do religions, by the way. Why is that? Well, it's because a religion is not flesh and blood as opposed to a person. A religion is a group of ideas, teachings, ways of acting, ways of being. And it also is a group of people that believes these things to be true, that they should do them, right? But a religion is not a person. It's hard to It's hard to feel anchored to something that isn't flesh and blood in one's life. Of course. Because we just don't understand a whole lot, do we? Yeah. And when we are talking to somebody, we have that level of a relationship with somebody, an anchoring thing. We just get them. They get us. Right? And we're very free with what we say to them. And they're very free with us. And can you imagine the pain of having that go away? But we're not talking about that pain. We're talking about understanding other people better. We're talking about this need we all have for those kinds of people in our lives. Well, why would we dismiss that in someone else? That need? Well, I think it maybe has something to do with our own selfishness, our own self-centeredness. And maybe this is one of the things that I dislike very much about many people that I have known. They don't really care that much about me. If they did, I would know. So the heck with them, right? I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to let them live. Not going to kill them for being selfish, self-centered. There might be times when I might very much want to do that. Not really. None of us really want to kill, I don't think. But it's something more like, I want them to be nicer. I want them to be more friendly. I want actually to be better friends with this person. And I'm saying this more like an 8-year-old, but no, I mean, like, this is the nature of life. This is just something we have to deal with. Police don't arrest people for not wanting to be our friends. We can think that they're more evil, and maybe they might help us to feel better about ourselves. And we know that being unkind and all these things is not the way of being, not the right way of being, and all this stuff. But the truth is, we just want to be loved. We want connections with people. We want meaningful connections. And there's just, sometimes no substitute for that. So how we treat other people is important. And that's the biggest understatement I've said these entire videos. Because, many of us are kind of self-centered in our ways of thinking. We see someone that comes along in our life, they're just passing us by, an acquaintance, or it's just someone we pass by in the street. We don't know what's going on with that person. That person would love it if we just said hi to him. I know it. And if they aren't, we get used to thinking that nobody wants us to say hi to them. Well, it's just not a great way of living, is it? Not really. Doesn't matter if you're earning $100,000 or $100 or $1 million or $1 billion. This doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. It only matters to sustain our lives and make our lives more comfortable. But there's a certain point at which it just becomes meaningless. But it means everything to the person who needs to survive. Doesn't have very much. It's not funny how much money is. The less we have of it, the more we need it. The more we have of it, the less we need it. But we want more. Food's kind of like that too, by the way. Kind of. I've never really wanted a whole lot for myself. No. It's not things. It's not things for me. Sometimes I wonder what it is I really want. Maybe I haven't asked that question enough for a while. I've had a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things I've had to do. or I've wanted to do, but I just haven't asked these sobering questions enough. I just think that, look, I mean, like, if I could kind of just sum up all these videos and get to a, I wish we were more like God, all of us, and because God loves us with a perfect love, which we hear that all the time. It becomes almost meaningless. But what does that mean? I mean, it means, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's something that's very internal. It's a very internal feeling. How can you love someone with a perfect love if you really don't have a whole lot of love to begin with? Or if you do, it's buried down somewhere beneath all the sorrows you're dealing with and all the heartaches and frustrations and all the confusions and stuff. So I guess in order to understand what a perfect love is, maybe we should understand what it's like to love more, to be a more loving person first. But whatever it is, it's stronger than anything we know of. If we're surrounded by it, I think weeping ourselves, just crying ourselves to death, that's going to be the least of our desires. Yeah, I mean, like, believe me, there's going to be a lot more things we'll want to feel and do in presence of the Lord. But if you are the sort of person that is probably more inclined to eventually live in heaven, I would think that probably crying would be really hard to avoid if you see God Himself. I imagine, well, I don't know. I just know that, yeah, emotions will run strongly. How would we, how do you feel about someone who's not perfect yet? Say yet, because we can all become perfect if we choose to be at some point. It's just going to take a long time. Long time. But, yeah, how do we treat people that are not perfect yet? It's so easy to fear God or to love God or whatever. And we're taught to. Isn't that just kind of annoying to be taught that you should love God? Why would anyone need to be taught that? Is there this idea that not loving God is evil, so that you need to be taught something that's good? Isn't it just natural that you would love a being that created you? And there's a question of if He created you or not. So the being that created you. Well, does He want you to only be this way or that way? And if you aren't this way or that way, He won't love you. He won't. You're gonna be forever cut off from His presence. All this stuff. Look, all I know is that if God exists, I do believe He does exist. Well, just consider how He feels about you being cut off from His presence forever. I don't think He wants that. If you really are His kid, or His creation, or whatever it is you believe about your relationship with God. Some people might say we're all just creations of some weird person or some artist or somebody, some entity, and we're living our lives, and He's just laughing along with everything we do. He's just making fun of us. Or some people believe that we're all. You've heard these. Why is it that we don't take a lot of these things as seriously as the idea of God? Omnipresent, omnipotent, whatever you want to say about Him. But basically the God that's going to, at least in the end, send you to heaven or hell. Why is it that this is such a big thing worldwide? Fear or love Him? Well, it shouldn't be very hard to understand this. But I think it's just let's just get back to the social thing here for a bit. Or need to be around other humans, have relationships. It's all about relationships, folks. Religion is meaningless without relationships. It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. If you were the only person that existed in the entire universe, so there's no other being, none, would you be God? I don't know. Who created you? If you just were created out of thin air and there was nobody else around, what kind of existence is that? You can think about this. I'm sure many people have thought about this before. Many, many people. You probably thought about this before. Adam and Eve. Who was before Adam and Eve? Was it monkeys? You can think about the evolution thing. Primordial ooze. Who was God's father? Who was his father? Who's his father? Who's his father? However you want to see the creation of life or the beginning of life or whatever it is, any of that stuff, however you want to see it, whatever you believe, it sucks to be lonely. It sucks to be by yourself. So we want others. Why do we want others? People in our life. Well, what's the purpose of living if there was nobody else but ourselves? Especially there's nothing other than us. So it's great to have things we could do, but what would it matter? I mean, unless we had someone to talk to about this stuff, about what we're doing, what they're doing. What would it matter? I really think that, these are the sorts of questions that should occupy our thoughts more often if we want to really understand ourselves, at least. We don't have to make any decisions about religion, necessarily. Just understand how we think and are. You can, believe me, I would love to know if I was once my umpteenth, my infinity level ancestor was a gray or a green ooze and what that meant in terms of my, that whole evolutionary standpoint thing, which I don't believe in that, but entertaining that thought, we want to know what we're made of. We want to know who we are in every respect. We love movies like The Matrix, but we maybe feel a little bit like, what? This worldview is messing with my worldview. I'm having kind of a mental paradox. I'm entertaining these ideas that are foreign to my thinking a little bit. Or if they're not foreign to my thinking, it's only it's a matter of time before we do get something from The Matrix that's a little different than our way of thinking. And if that doesn't happen, we move on to something else that's maybe a bit more thought-provoking. I don't know. I just know that we need other people. This is the theme. Do we need other people if they're criminals? Or if they're going to be very evil on some level? Very cruel and malicious and all that other stuff? Are those the kinds of people that we need? Would we survive? Would we be okay if there was just those kinds of people we were around? Let's think about the movie Chronicles of Riddick here for a second. Now, Riddick was around criminals' entire life. He seems almost lifeless, like just living for himself. And so they described him as a different kind of evil, because that kind of evil seems to resist wanting relationships with other people. I know I've mentioned this before in another video. I know I have. It's a very interesting thought. That's the thing about it. Why Vin Diesel probably liked this role is like, this is a different kind of villain. Someone who just doesn't give a crap about anyone but himself. That's evil, but is it a evil that goes around looking for reasons to hurt other people? Not necessarily. But he doesn't really care. And you see him kind of change a little bit to someone who's maybe a little bit more, caring. Toward the end of, there's a character arc, but it's interesting. But I wonder, you just wonder, how many Riddicks we have in this world. I wonder how much of a Riddick we have in ourselves. How much we truly don't care about anyone. That's the question. It's not a question of how much evil or harm will we cause other people. It's just, the question is, how much do we just honestly just don't care? It's a sobering question. But, if I were to sum all these videos up right now, it's the caring. It's the caring about other people. That matters. It matters. Even if everyone that you're surrounded by says it doesn't matter and makes fun of you for thinking that it matters. Anything you can do to show that you really care about someone, and you actually truly feel like you care about someone inside, and it's for real, that matters. We want relationships. We don't like it when people put up walls. It's never pleasant. It's never good. What do you think the adversary wants? He wants us to put up walls. I know I've mentioned this before. I have mentioned this before. I know I have. So getting back to my original train of thought, how do we see other people? We tend to see other people from our own understanding of humanity. But I think we are also, many of us, open to things we're less familiar with about humanity. Or we try to sense them. We do sense them. We're curious about them. Sometimes we're curious. Sometimes we're uneasy. Sometimes we're excited. Whatever it is about other people, all these differences between people, it's something that we need. It's something that, we do need to kind of take that leap of faith that we think someone's a certain way, even if they're not. Even if they say we're being racist or we're being sexist or we're being whatever, if we try to make an honest attempt to understand someone else by grouping someone into some group or box category, or we say something that shows that we're trying to understand someone better, and it's rebuffed, or it's accepted, but maybe we just come to understand someone, maybe we're disappointed in who we try to get to know. Maybe we thought they were a sort of person that maybe they weren't. Whatever it is, we need to keep doing that. We need to keep being curious. We need to keep being open, especially to people that are good. But if there are people who are not so good, those people still need relationships. It's the same for everybody. It makes those church ladies look pretty ridiculous and silly when they realize how many people that were actually pretty decent people or could have been better if they, but once you start putting yourself up at a pedestal in some area, in some way, shape, or form, it's only a matter of time before you'll feel ridiculous for being a factor for someone else's misery. That didn't even have to be that way if you were more inclusive. Nerds and jocks and preppies and popular girls. It's really no different in the adult world. It's just that we just have different names. And sum this all up, we need to understand other people better. We need to keep trying to do that better. We need to stop saying we're good enough. we're not good enough. We won't be good enough until we truly are perfected. Whenever that happens. Catch you guys later. Just have a good night. Take care.